Amen. Amen. Jesus, you are indeed so beautiful. Thank you, Brother Marcus, for that ministry and music. And at this point in time, I will give way to Dr. Clarke, who will be doing his presentation now. Dr. Clarke, the floor is yours.
Hello, hello, good evening, happy Sabbath to everyone. Right, the presentation of myself might not be recognizable, but due to COVID, I haven't been able to get a haircut, nor a shave. So what you see today, this Sabbath, is an unshaven, COVID compliant Christian. Okay, so I hope you will excuse my beardedness from head to chin. All right, so this evening, we are going to talk about a very interesting topic. And the topic I was given today, given recently, was to talk about the relationship between emotional intelligence and family relations. And that's a very involved and it's a very, very powerful topic. And it's a topic of concern to all of us. Every one of us has some element of our lives that we can speak about in relation to this topic. So let me begin by sharing my screen and then we will get started. Where's everything now? Okay, let's do that first. Good. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Thank you very, very much. Okay, so we're going to be talking about emotional intelligence, and I call it family togetherness. And I am not going to give you a short version of the course that we teach at the university that I teach on this topic. And I do workshops on because we don't have the time for that. I shall try to keep my discourse as close to the specific family week emphasis. Emphasis is family life, and I want to keep it as close to that as possible. And I want to leave enough time for you to ask me questions about this. Okay. So one of the things that I need to begin with is to say to you, and I've said to myself on more than one occasion, that that when you look around in your church, in your community, and you see people going about, couples going about their business, and they look so happy, happily married couples, and they're enjoying each other's company. And you say to yourself, well, if you're a married person, you say, you know, I would like to be like that. Or especially if the couple is much older and they've been married for maybe 10, 15 years. Forget 30 and 40, because that's really now something else. You look at them, you say, well, wonder to yourself, wonder what it is that kept these two people together in spite of the challenges that they face. And that's what we are going to talk about today. How is it that you can keep your relationship with your spouse whole and together? How you can also have that warm relationship with your siblings, your brothers and your sisters, even with your in-laws, have mercy. How you can have that going with your in-laws, and how all of this makes it such a wonderful spiritual experience within the bond of the family. So I have thought about that myself, and you wonder, I mean, happy couples are pretty much like every other couple that we see. But before we get there, we need to talk a bit about the family. Now, the family is very important. The family is important for society. And let me just give you my version of the role of the family. Let me just do this. Let me minimize. Right. So the family performs several essential functions for society. So we wouldn't have a family, we wouldn't have a society if we didn't have families, because it socializes children, it provides emotional and practical supports for its members, it helps regulate sexual activity and sexual reproduction, and it provides its members with a social identity. We all of us belong to a family, a physical family. We belong to a family. And that is very, very important. And in some societies, it is like the DNA of the culture to be a member of a family. And if you're not a member of a family, or you can't be identified, then you get ostracized. So for society, families are important. Now, also part of the teaching of the Christian church is that the family is the nucleus of the church. And I know that all of you have heard from time immemorial and throughout this week, other presenters talk about the role of the family and the role of the family in relation to the church, and how the maintenance of the church is bound up with the family and the way it's raised. And that's why within our SDA religion, we have very clear guidelines about family life. And it's very important for us and how we should bring up our children and so on, because that is the stability, this the unifying element of the church. So when God created humans, he designed us to live in families, not as single persons, not as individuals who are without bonds. The Bible reveals that family relations are important to God. The church, the universal body of believers, is called the family of God. And all of us this evening know that we have two families. We have the family, the church family, and we have our biological family. And then other persons might even have adopted families, individuals who reach out and took us in and looked after us and cared for us and sent us to school. They adopt us. They bring us in and they identify with us and they make us part of their family. And so we now become part of their family. So the church, the universal body of believers, is called the family of God. So when we receive God's Spirit as salvation, we are adopted into his family, okay? And that's a wonderful experience for anyone who has had that unifying feeling. But I want to go back to the topic that I brought up earlier, where you look around and you see individuals. And those individuals in those marital relationships are no different from you and I, if you're married or you belong to family, because they have disagreements. They disagree. Sometimes they even have heated arguments. They have work-related stress. They have personal stress. They have stress with their children. They have struggles to raise their children. Some of them have financial stress, and some of them have difficult situations under which they have to live. And sometimes they don't always see eye to eye with their partner. So what sets happily married couples apart? What keeps them relatively happy and satisfied? I pause at this point to ask you if you've ever thought like I have. Have you ever had that thought about what it is that keep people, married people together. Have you ever had that happily together? Have you ever thought about that? Now, this is an interactive session, sisters and brothers. So we need feedback as we go along. Okay, so I am assuming then that you have thought about that. Now, there's one important distinction that sets married couples apart from unhappy married couples. And it's a greater capacity for emotional intelligence. Greater capacity for that. And emotional intelligence then has to be defined. It is what is known as the ability to understand. Watch these words are really important. Understand, and then having understood, use and manage your own emotion in positive ways. That's the key word, positive ways to relieve stress. So when you use it in a positive way, what happens? Relieve stress, communicate effectively, empathize with others, overcome challenges, and diffuse conflict. Now, you might be saying to yourself, but how is it possible that such a little thing as emotional intelligence can have such a tremendous impact on a family? All those things that I just called. No, I don't believe that. Well, we will see. So what emotional intelligence helps you build stronger relationships? Look out. Succeed at school and work. Oh my goodness. And achieve your career and personal goals. It can also help you to connect with your feelings and turn intentions into action and make informed decisions about what matters most to you. Good. So let me then go on to explain to you something about else about emotional intelligence. I'm going to skip out of what is emotions and all that because I don't think that we need it at this time. Okay. And I'm going to put a pause and then I'm going to say to you that we have emotions and we have feelings. And when we talk about emotions, we are talking about those things that those expressions of feelings that we have. Can you see my screen? What emotions are? Can you see them?
Yes, we can.
Right, jolly good. So when you do the literature, you'll see that sometimes you have individuals saying that they have their 60 main emotions, because emotions are divided up into, separated, I should say, into primary emotions and secondary emotions. And I need to tell you about them. And so some books talk about 6 emotions, but I have been able, along with some other theorists, to identify and support 4 primary emotions. And then I'm going to talk to you about the secondary emotions. So my 4 primary emotions are anger, fear, sadness, and the 4th one is joy or happiness. Anger, I want you to remember these. Fear, bring it up again so you can see a bit better. Anger, fear, joy, and sadness. So those are the 4 primary emotions. But if you can look a bit closer, you would see below those 4 primary emotions are a group of words that we call the secondary emotions. So let me just see. So if you feel frustrated, frustration is the nursery bed, or should I say it's the initial feeling that's going to grow into anger. So we have a number of words below anger. And so these are all the secondary emotions that you get. And sometimes you're getting these other sensations. You're angry, not angry, so you're mad, or you're resentful, or you become disgusted, or you feel defensive, all these kind of things, feelings you get. And the real feeling that you're having is one of anger. But you might not be able to detect it because you're just feeling frustrated. And you don't know that if you continue to feel frustrated with what you're doing, or with an individual or situation or event, that eventually it would lead you into anger. So I'm just going to show you how just that is a level of intelligence that the average person doesn't have. The average person doesn't have that. And they don't realize that all of these secondary emotions feed into an expression of a bigger emotion, which then becomes a problem. So you are having a discussion with your brother, your sister, your partner, your wife, your husband, your mother, your father, your grandmother, your grandfather, your boss at work, your friend, it doesn't really matter. So you're having the discussion with them, and then there is disagreement between you and that person. Okay. And you can tell from the nature of the dialogue or the exchange between yourself and the other person that now things are not going in the right direction. There's a disagreement, and the disagreement has turned into an argument, and the argument is becoming feisty, and you're getting frustrated, and all the time your emotions are building up. Now, when you become emotionally intelligent, and remember, we must go back to that first definition, said you need to understand. So you understand, oh my goodness, I'm getting angry now. I'm really, I'm frustrated, and this frustration is going to take me down a road that's going to create anger, and I don't really want to be like that. So what is happening? You are becoming aware. I'm ahead of myself in my slides, but you are becoming self-aware that of your sensations, the feelings you're getting. And if you become aware of the sensations or the feelings you're getting, you now are going to use that awareness to inform your thinking. So you can say to yourself, yeah, I'm getting angry. I think now you have choice. When you become aware of the sensation that is arising in you have choice. You can say, I'm going to continue to argue, or you could say, I can defer this and says, all right, tonight is Sabbath night, and I don't think we should be arguing because it's a stressful night. Or you could say, well, it's no point my arguing because I don't really want to go to bed with a lot of stress in my mind. So you have choice now. You have to decide whether you're going to pursue the argument to score or win, or you can decide I'm going to deflect it, I'm going to defer it, or I am just going to say, I'm going to be more of a pacifist, and I'm going to say, okay, all right. And you're going to calm your voice down. So you have lots of options. And you're making those choices or the decisions based on your self-awareness that the emotional feelings or sensations that you're experiencing at the time that you're having this argument is one that is going to lead you down a path that you really don't want to, because voices are being raised, feelings are being hurt, etc. Now you can do that with those three emotions, these four emotions, to any degree. So now you're exercising choice. So individuals who are couples who are happily married, so I'm going to focus on Family Week, and this is a double families in particular. But this same theoretical concept, this principle applies to interpersonal relationships, but let's keep it to the family. So you're going to decide, well, how you're going to deal with these situations. So rather than get into an argument and the argument is going wrong because you're arguing and raising voices and all kinds of things, you tone down your voice and you decide, okay, listen, darling, or listen, honey, or whatever your favorite name is for your partner. And you say, okay, look, we are arguing. We're not getting anywhere with this. So I think we should really, let's calm down and let's either forget about it and we talk about it later, or let's look at this. Let's have a look at really what the issue is. Now, when you do that, that is now using your emotional intelligence in a positive way. So happy couples discuss issues in a courteous way. Now, what's that word courteous? In a courteous way, in a civil way. They're not hurling abuse at each other. They're not calling each other different names. They're not saying to one another that you never do this and you always do that. And you're just like your mom and your father that, and your mom is just like that. Happy couples tend to avoid name calling, mud singing, blaming, all of those things. They tend to discuss issues in a respectful and a courteous way. Number one. Number two, they listen. They listen to what each other is saying. I'm sure that you have had situations, I had it today, and I always get it, where you are talking, and while you're talking, the other person gets annoyed, or they might not even be annoyed, but whatever you say, the other person that's supposed to be listening wants to talk also. So they interrupt what you're saying and they start talking. And then they start talking, and invariably they add a component to the discussion that really was not a fundamental part of the issue. So they put in something else into the discussion, or they take it in a different direction. And what happens then is that you never get the chance to explain yourself thoroughly. Parents do it to children, partners do it to each other, husbands do it to wives, and vice versa, and so on and so forth. We never give the person a chance to explain. We always want to talk. We always want to talk. And if you can stop and listen, you can learn so much more about why that person is feeling the way they are, or why they are doing what. Because very often you don't really know. You don't know why someone is behaving in a certain way. And so you don't even get the chance to stop and say, explain to me why you're doing that. It's just backwards and forwards in the discussion. So happy couples listen to each other. They give each other time to space to talk. So each person has a chance to talk. And I have seen that work, and it works very well, even with children. And, in our parents, my parents, not your parents, my parents had the concept where, you weren't part of adult conversation. When adults are talking or conversing, the children must keep quiet. Well, of course, that doesn't apply so much these days. And children need to know how just to interrupt. They say, excuse me, mom, or excuse me, dad, or something like that. And then you give them permission to speak. But the point is that we need to listen to each other more. If you're in a relationship and nobody's listening to you, you know how you're going to feel. You're going to feel really bad. You're going to feel like you don't matter. Nobody cares about you. What's the point anywhere, right? So you're asking someone, you have a habit of always interrupting, never giving someone to speak, and then you say to them, okay, so what do you think about this color paint? You think we should paint the house like this? And so you start to express yourself, and before you can finish, somebody else interrupts and say, your partner interrupts and says, no, I think green is a good color. And he hasn't really heard what you've said. So you said, okay, whatever, you do whatever you want. And you know that that's going to create frustration. So listening. The other thing that happy couples do, they positive interaction outweighs their negative interactions. So we're not saying they don't have negative interactions. They do. They argue, they disagree, and whatever. But they disagree, but they're not disagreeable. They disagree, but they're not insulting. They disagree, but they allow each other to listen to a different viewpoint. Okay? And so as a result, they tend to have more positive interactions than negative interactions. Unhappy couples have a lot of negative interactions. So looking here, you see you have these four primary emotions, and we have all of these secondary emotions below: sadness. We have apathy, depression, guilt, hurt, loneliness, shameful, weak. All of these secondary emotions are closely aligned to the primary emotion. But now let me give you a little takeaway before I continue, and say to you that whenever you are angry, I'm going to go slow because I want you to get this. Whenever you are angry, and I'm going to come back and ask you this question later. I want you to think of the last time that you were angry. And I'm saying that whenever you are angry, you want to change something in the present. You want to change, that means stop or start something. Anytime you're angry, you want to change, which is stop or start something. That's why people get angry. Think about that. Right. Whenever you feel sad, it's because it signals that you have some physiological or psychological loss. Sadness signifies that you have experienced some physiological or psychological loss. When you feel happy and joyful, it signifies that you have some physical or psychological gain. Whenever you feel fearful, you feel it signals that you are doubtful, that you are apprehensive, that there's some danger, physiologically or psychological. And therefore, there's a need for caution in your decision making. So I want you to think about those, and I'm going to come back and I'm going to ask you to tell me a bit more about that. So we talked about those already, right? So we covered all of that. Okay. So the key skill for building your emotional quotient or emotional intelligence is improving your ability to manage emotions and connect with others. Okay, so I spoke to you about the kinds of things that happy couples do. I said happy couples discuss issues in a courteous way. I said that happy couples listen to each other. I also said that happy couples have more positive interactions than negative ones. And also, in addition to that, they tend to express admiration, understanding, and respect for each other. They tend to compliment each other. They say, "Oh, that dress looks nice. Oh, your hairstyle is wonderful. Wow, you look so beautiful today." Can you imagine? No, you can't. Many wives can testify that they have been to the hairdresser, they have had their hair done, or they've had their nails, some facial activity took place. They come home and their husbands never see the transformation. Don't see what has happened. Don't say, "Oh, you look nice." Makes no compliments. And they are wondering to themselves, but how come he didn't see that? How come? And if he saw it, he didn't even say anything about it. It's like it never happened. These are important moments, teaching moments, because you must be willing to express admiration. The same thing goes for wives seeing your husband's dressed in a really nice suit. He puts it on, nice shoes, nice ties. "Oh, that's a beautiful tie." Compliment him. Say words of admiration and respect, mutual respect. These are the kind of things that happy couples do. And also with happy couples, there's a feeling that your partner is in your corner. He has your back and will support you no matter what. So even if you make a foible, in other words, and if you make a mistake, he's not going to say in public or at the tea party or whatever, "Yeah, I always tell you that you shouldn't say that, or you shouldn't do that." Or look at yourself, why are you wearing a dress like that? Things like that would cause shame, embarrassment to the other partner. You need to be much more sensitive to your environment, to your relationship, and you need to use more complimentary and respectful comments. These are the things that happy couples do. So I'm focusing on the positive today. So I want you to think about your own relationship with your partner in the light of what I've just said. Okay, so let's move on to the PowerPoint. And we see here self-awareness. And I introduced that word to you earlier because self-awareness is what I see. It's not what someone else sees in me. It's what I see. Are you aware of yourself? Many persons are not aware of themselves. They don't know what's happening, and that, who am I? I mean, why am I doing what I'm doing? What is it about me? Being able to make self-appraisal, what you see of yourself. And then the other one is self-management. So when you see who you are, when you know what you are, you're aware of your feelings, it means that now you can self-manage. So when I'm aware that, as I was chatting earlier, and I said, I'm aware that the conversation I'm having with my spouse is not getting anywhere, and we are just getting raised voices, which is likely to lead to some conflict or some disagreement, and that might end up in an unpleasant state. When I become aware of that and aware of my emotions, I decide I am going to manage these emotions as they're going up. That is called self-management, management of yourself. And when you learn to manage yourself, oh, it's tremendous. You're able to achieve wonderful things because you can decide, I don't want that feeling, or that feeling, I'm not going to express that feeling now because there's nothing to be gained. It's likely to upset the other person. So let me not pursue that because I don't particularly want to upset him or her or whatever. And so self-awareness and self-management go together. So one is what I see and the other is what I do. I'm going to leave the other one. I just want to move on to right. Good. So a happy marriage is an emotional, intelligent marriage. It includes two partners who are committed to both self and other awareness. And the more emotionally intelligent a couple, the better able they are to understand, see that word understand, honor, and respect each other in this manner. Okay, self-management. I remember I mentioned that to you. To engage your emotional intelligence, you must be able to use your emotions to make constructive decisions about your behavior. When you become overly stressed, you can lose control of your emotions and the ability to act thoughtfully and appropriately. When you are emotionally present, you can learn to receive upsetting information without letting it override your thoughts and self-control. Think about a time when stress has overwhelmed you. Was it easy to think clearly or make a rational decision? Your ability to both think clearly and accurately assess your emotions, your own and other people's emotions, is very important. And therefore, it helps you having that skill to make an assessment about how you feel and how, if you express how you feel, what the impact would be on the other person. You then decide to make a compromise statement, action. You start to think differently about how you want to do it. I'm going to pause there so that let me just go to the slide number and make a pause and get some questions. All right. Now, this triangle is normally called Beck, Aaron Beck's triangle. So at the top of the triangle, you have something, we have what we do call thoughts. What we think affects how we feel and act. Let me give you a second. Let me go over that again. Your thoughts. Your thoughts are the most critical aspects or elements of your being, your thoughts. What we think affects how we feel and how we act. On the descending arc of that triangle, you see emotions. Now, how you think affects how you feel, because how you feel affects what you think and do. So you'll notice that there's an arrow that goes back. So your emotions influence the thoughts that generate the original emotion. So let me give that to you in common English. So let's go back to the fact that you feel frustrated. And as you get increasingly frustrated, you become angry. Here, the E, you become angry. You feel angry. And as your thoughts dwell on your being angry, or you start to feel disrespected, all kinds of things arise from your anger. So your angry feelings generate new thoughts that go back up to the T and come down to the B in your behavior. So the thoughts influence the emotions. The emotions also increase the thinking process, becoming increasingly more negative. And the more negative your thoughts, the greater is your desire for action, the B. And when you act out, you beat, you shout, you curse, you whatever, guess what? That now creates new thoughts back up there, and you have this situation going backwards and forwards between emotions and behaviors, between behaviors and thoughts, and before you know, you have a right mess. Okay, so let me pause and get some questions before we run out of time. And then I'm going to come back to the presentation.
Okay, Dr. Clarke, I see Peter Foster, his hand is up. Peter, you can unmute and ask your question. Peter? Okay, so if he's not responded, I would read some questions that was sent privately to me.
Okay.
The first one is, can you explain how it seems as though we seem to have less, little, or no emotional intelligence when dealing with family? For example, we don't fly off the handle with our bosses as quickly as we do with our spouses or children.
Okay. This is a very good question. Now, your spouse, your children, your siblings, your parents constitute your family. Okay, so that's your family, even your mother-in-law and your father-in-law, and your sister-in-law and your brother-in-law. These are all part of your family. And when you're in a family, you have expectations of the members. Each member of your family, each one, you have expectations of them. Some of them, let's be frank, some of them you have no expectations. Some you have little expectations. Some you have a lot of expectations. So the closer you are to that particular individual, based not only on just bloodlines, but on relationship. So it's not just because he's your brother that you're going to have higher expectations of him. No, what is the relationship in terms of interaction? How do you interact with your brother? How do you all get on? Do you all talk to each other and share things and call each other? I mean, is it a loving, flowing interaction, or is it very staccato? Or is it that you call each other once for Christmas? Hey, brother, hi, Christmas time. You send what? So it's so the relationship experience with that person will influence your expectations of that person. So within your family, you have varying expectations of the individuals within your family. Now, what happens is that because you have those expectations, and by the way, they all have expectations of you. So each person in the family has varying levels of expectations of each other. But expectations are not equal. So even between you and your spouse, what you expect of your spouse might not be equal to what your spouse expects of you in a particular category. That even gets to even more complicated, because she might expect you to do certain things, and you don't even know that she expects you to do that, because she might not have said she expects it. She might bring it across as though something she would like you to do. Now, there's a difference between liking someone or would like someone to do something, and an expectation. An expectation is deeper, and it has more significance for the person that has the expectation. But if you would like someone to do something, you say, well, I would like you to do it. If you do it, it's like saying, if you do it, it's fine. That'd be good. But if you don't do it, it's all right. But expectations are different. These are serious things. So because you have these varying expectations, and whenever you get a disappointment in a lowering, or you get your expectations lowered, or you get them crushed, or you get them unfulfilled, then there is a lot of emotion that arises because you feel hurt. You either feel like you remember I talk about anger is something that you want to stop or start or change, and so on. Good. So that is really what happens in your mind. You say to yourself, but how could she do that? I mean, that's my brother. I mean, how could he possibly do that or say that? Did she really say that? Because in your mind, like, I don't expect her to say that. I expect her to. Good. So that is what causes the great tension in families. because of the expectational differential between the person and the other members in their family.
All right, thank you, Dr. Clarke. I have another question.
Sure.
Being aware of the secondary emotions that lead up to the primary emotions, is it then fair to say one can stop themselves from experiencing the primary emotion by choice, especially in the case of sadness?
Yes. Okay. So let's, if I have the time, let's deconstruct sadness. Sadness comes about when you have lost something. Okay? Okay, you have lost something. But because you have lost something, doesn't necessarily mean that you need to become overwhelmed by the loss of that particular thing. So how do you interpret the loss? How significant is the loss to you? Can you function in the absence of that thing, object, or person? What it? Thing, object, or person? So give it. So if you are in a relationship with someone and the relationship isn't going anywhere, and you all part company, and your boyfriend and he he goes his way, right? Okay, you might miss him, but if you say good riddance to bad rubbish. So if you think like good, I'm so glad that I don't have to deal with him. All right, you've had a loss. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to feel sad about it. You might miss him. You might miss a couple of things, but you'll bounce back and get over it quicker than if he was someone that you treasured, you liked, you cared about, you even got so caught up in your mind, you thought about a future partner, and he left. Then that loss would translate into something much deeper in terms of your sadness. So your feeling of loss, the extent to which that the significance or the importance of the thing that you lost has to you influences the level of sadness that you experience. Is it clear?
Yes,
Good.
yes, very much. Thank you. We have another question.
Sure.
Is it that I always need to give way to the other person? What if I think my views are right, but it will make my partner angry?
Good question. All right. So you think your views are right, and you're in a relationship where your partner functions by zero sum, which means I win or you lose, or you win or I lose, zero sum. Now, anytime you're in a relationship, and that's the nature of the discourse when you're talking, and it's he always has to win or you always have to win, then you're going to have to be very guarded, because that is not ideal for a satisfactory, happy relationship. Because you need to get to a point of compromise. You cannot always be right, neither can you always be wrong. He cannot always be right, neither can he always be wrong. Because that suggests someone being perfectly right and perfectly wrong. And that doesn't exist this side of heaven. And that we all have our areas of improvements, or what we call weaknesses. Okay. So if you have a viewpoint in the relationship, you must express your viewpoint. And as you're expressing your viewpoint and it's interrupted, you stop and you say, excuse me, can I finish, please? And then I will allow you to speak. That is called assertive communication. where you are telling the other person in a respectful way how you feel, what you feel, and you're telling them, okay, could you let me finish what I'm saying? And then I will let you speak. You know, you're asking it you need to keep your voice in a modulated tone because you don't really want to be shouting and screaming. Because when you start shouting and screaming at each other, then things just spiral out of control. So yes, so you make your point and then you let him make his point. And you in turn, when he's speaking and making his point, you listen. If you need clarification, you can say, well, could you explain that? Because I'm not getting it. I'm not understanding. No, I don't quite understand what you're saying. You can ask for clarification about what he or she is saying so that it would enhance your ability, your understanding of the nature of the discourse. But you have rights. You have the right to express yourself. Now, who decides what is right and who is right and who is wrong should be influenced, one, by the importance of the discussion. What is it we are discussing about? Is it about the future of our child? Is it about paying bills? Is it about my personal educational development? Is it about whether we are going to look after your mother who's not well? What is it about? So there's some things that you sweat and some things you don't sweat. In other words, you don't have to fight about everything. There's some things that you say to yourself, okay, you know what? This is not really fighting about. This is not so significant. But if there are things that are very significant, in terms of the relationship and in terms of the way it will impact other people in the relationship, then you need to make your point and make it forcefully in what we call in an assertive manner.
All right, thank you very much. And we have one more question.
Yeah.
So is it safer to have little to no expectations of persons to safeguard one's emotions?
Repeat that. Is that to say that we should have little or no expectations?
Yes. So is it safer to have little to no expectations?
Okay. All right. I have a friend who has those kind of thoughts too. No. In our interaction with family members, in our interaction with work colleagues, in our interaction with buddies and friends and so on, we get to know each other. We get to know each person's ability to tolerate and not tolerate. We get to know the things that upset them, the things they don't like, and so on. On the basis of that knowledge, we just said earlier what you're becoming self-awareness and other. If you go back to the definition, it says it has to do with understanding your emotions and managing the emotions in a wise way, and empathize, and also the way it relates to others. So you have self-awareness and other awareness. That means you're aware of the other person's emotional state. Now, so having that, you then pitch your expectations according to what your knowledge of the person. But you can still get disappointed. You can still get disappointed when you think you know someone and you didn't. That happened to me on one occasion where I have this friend of mine and he's always expressively says to me, anytime you want anything, you and your family want it, no problem, he's a millionaire. Anytime, my brother, you just come and call and you can have it, not a problem. He would always say that. He would say that in the presence of my daughters. He would say it in the presence of my spouse. He would tell my spouse, anything you guys want. And he would say that all the time. It's like his mantra. He would invite us to his house. We would have lunch together and all that sort of thing. And one time I had a financial challenge and I went to him and I asked him to lend me a small sum of money. It was small to the point of insignificance in terms of his wealth. He's multimillionaire. And he says to me, no problem, no problem. I get it for you, not a problem. And I waited, and I waited, and then I called him up and I said, hey, so-and-so, what happened? He said, no, man, sorry, I was busy. I'll get it for you. But because the need was urgent, I went to another friend, and the other friend obliged me. And I didn't say anything more to him. I didn't call him and follow up on it. And he never, I repeat, never up to today asked me how I manage. He never loaned me, or offered to lend me the money I wanted to borrow from him. And that worried him for many, many years. How I remain his friend and still continue to come to his house, and he come to my house for dinner, in spite of the fact that he never honored our relationship by lending me the money. And after many years, he said to me, how do you do that? How come you do? I couldn't do it. I said, well, my friendship with you is not based on your money. We are not friends because you have money. Your money is your money. And if you choose not to lend me your money for whatever reason you may have, then that's okay. Because even though we were friends, you might think, well, if I lend this money to Edward, I might not get it back, even though it was insignificant. But that was his principle. And he might have thought, I don't know. I didn't even bother to put much energy in it. But he was troubled by the fact that I wasn't troubled because he didn't lend me the money. So so getting to know the person, you have to go out there and trust people. You have to trust. Relationships are founded on trust. You have to trust, and sometimes you get disappointed. We all get disappointed in relationships, but that's not the end of the world. We need to have a level of resilience inside of us to deal with disappointments. It's okay. The only true friend is Jesus Christ, and he will not let me down. Oh, by the way, and some of us even get disappointed with him. Have mercy. Sometimes we get disappointed with Jesus, and we claim promises, and then they don't come. And you said, but you promise, So we get disappointed with our faith in God. So you just have to have it, go out there, and if the expectations are not met, try and manage them in a very constructive way.
Excellent. And Doctor, I have one more question. Someone sent this one and they said, does diet have anything to do with emotions?
Yes, there's a lot of research. There's a lot of research out there that deals with our emotional state and the food we eat. Actually, the Bible speaks about it. And that's why you would find that meat is not one of the preferred foods that God wanted the Israelites to consume. And it's interesting. I find it very interesting that most of the high performing top athletes across the different sports tend, when they want to peak, they tend to stop eating meat. Whether you are, we saw recently on television, Portuguese footballer Ronaldo, and we moving away beverages, Coca-Cola from in front of him, because he doesn't drink those fizzy drinks. He finds them to be unhealthy. Now, we have the word. We have the health message. Now, here is an individual who knows nothing about that, but he knows that he shouldn't be putting fizzy drinks and all these other kind of things in their bodies. So what happens is that what we eat influences how we feel. What we eat influences how we feel. You can research it. And how we feel influences how we think, our emotions. And there's a lot of research that has shown people who eat lots of meat products tend to experience angry emotions more often and with greater intensity than others who do not, who are vegetarians. Okay.
Yes, and three questions just came in. I don't know if you want to continue with the presentation.
Let me just get back there because the questions for me are far more important than my discourse because I am just here to answer, to help you to deal with issues.
Sure, so go ahead.
All right, so let's go to this slide here. Can you see it?
Yes, but it's small.
Right. Okay, you see it better now?
Yes.
Right. Okay. So you see now here in this slide, we have self-awareness and we have self-management. So let me go through it quickly. And you need to tell me how many more minutes I have, because I don't have a watch. That's one of the things I don't have. So you have self-awareness, influences self-confidence, awareness of your emotional state, recognizing how your behavior impacts others, pay attention to how others influence your emotional state. So you not only influence others, but people influence you. Because you go into a shop, and if you meet a very offhanded salesperson, you're going to get angry. You're likely to get annoyed by the way she treats you. And so we always influence each other's emotional state, especially if we are not self-managing. When you self-manage, you get along well with others, you handle conflicts effectively, clearly expressing ideas and information. You clearly express your ideas and information. What we just said is assertive communication. You're using sensitivity to another person's feelings. You become aware of the way, if I say that, she's going to get upset, so I better not use that word. I better find another word. I better not express it like that. So you're sensitive not only to what's happening to you, but you're also sensitive to what the other person is going to experience. And so you're managing the interaction between yourself and your sister, yourself and your mother, yourself and your brother. So if you can manage the interactions between each other, oh, that's wonderful. So what happens sometimes is that, a member of my family, I have 3 daughters, one would come and says, Dad, I think so-and-so, you did so-and-so, I think you favor so-and-so. And I said, no, that's not the case. And I explained to that daughter why I did what I did. And then she said, oh, okay, all right. So now she understands. So, you must remember that. And therefore I try to maintain as a father, as a husband, you need to try and maintain balance. You need to nurture your family, but we're going to get around to that, I hope, later. So you have self-awareness, self-management, you have social awareness, picking up on the mood in the room. You walk into a room, you could pick up what's going on in the room or in the house. You go visit your auntie or something, you can walk in and you can tell from the greetings what's going on. Things are not too peaceful here. Caring what others are going through, that is social awareness. This is what we express now during COVID for each other. Hearing what the other person is really saying, not the top, but the bottom part of what they're saying. That's being socially aware. And COVID has made us more socially aware of each other's needs. And then we have this other quadrant here called relationship management, which we definitely don't have time to develop. These are called social competencies. The others are called personal competencies, and the ones at the bottom are called social competencies. Getting along well with others. You know, there's a saying, people say, oh, some people are difficult. Now, I have a concept, and we can develop it here, where a person, oh, you know, I don't believe they're difficult people. They might be difficult for us to deal with, but there are other people who deal with them. So they are only difficult in relation to us, not necessary to other people. So getting along well with others is important in relationship management. Handling conflict effectively, clearly expressing ideas and information, using sensitivity to another person's feelings and empathy to manage interactions successfully. So you can see how these various quadrants relate to each other to make you to develop both personal competence and social competence. And one is about recognizing what is happening, and the other is about regulating. One of the biggest things that parents should train their children to do is to self-regulate. In other words, you teach children what they shouldn't do at home and so on, and then they imbibe that. And when they go out, they're with you or they're not with you, they have internalized the things you said, and they can say, no, I am not supposed to be doing that. That is not right. That's called self-regulation. Up here, you see? Self-regulation. Really important, really critical element in relationships and so on. Okay, let me just use one more slide, and then I am going to go back to the questions. Sorry. Right. Okay. So so let me go back to the questions because that's really where the importance is. Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
So we have a question.
Yes.
So this person is asking, what if one's calm voice infuriates the person more? What do you do then?
If what, sorry?
If one's calm voice
Yes, infuriates the other person.
the person even more, what do you do then?
All right. So you're talking about a situation where you decide, look, I'm not going to shout and scream like you are. I'm going to have a quieter attitude and discussion. Well, listen, I am not trying to eliminate disagreement. You know, you're going to have disagreements. Disagreements are not the problem. It is how you deal with these things. The impact these things, how you deal with these things determine the impact they have on the relationship. So if you decide that you're not going to get into an argument, then you tell the person, this is something that concerns me, and I am going to wait for another time when you are not in this mood, and we need to talk about it. So if the person is, you know, spouting out or getting angry, and you decide, nope, this is no point us having this discussion because you're much too angry, you're not being rational, you're not thinking straight. So let me be calm. But you make the point to the person, look, we are not going to get anywhere screaming and shouting. I think that we should stop talking about this. This is something very important that I need your full attention, and I'm going to bring it up later at another time when it's convenient. Okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Understood.
Yep.
All right, on to the next question. My child always seems to be frustrated when I try to speak to her. What practical steps can I take to help her develop her emotional quotient?
Okay. So she gets upset when you speak to her. Now, there are lots of things missing there. Okay. One, how are you speaking to her? What are you saying to her? What is the tone of voice? What language are you using when you talk to her? What kind of words are you using when you talk to her? These are very critical elements of that when I talk to her. Okay. So if you are a parent that berates, belittles, speak down to, talk negatively to, you have that manner, then you are going to get passive resistance. You're going to get the child not hearing you but not listening to you, or hearing you but dismissing you, and then you get frustrated because you keep talking and talking and talking and you're not getting through to the person, and you're not even stopping to find out, look at yourself and see what you're doing, because you start from a premise where you say what the way you're speaking to her is okay because you're the mother. So lots of parents assume authority of motherhood without the ability to communicate properly, right? And that is a problem. And parents don't like to acknowledge their shortcomings. If she's doing something and she's doing something wrong, how are you telling her off for doing the thing wrong? How are you doing it? Have you stopped to say to her, stop and say, listen, Betty, or whatever her name may be, or, why is it that when I speak to you, you don't respond, or you seem not to listen? Ask your child that. You'll be surprised what she'll say. She may say, oh, because you're always shouting, or because you're always blaming me for this, or you're always doing that. Because sometimes you're doing things and you don't even know what damage you're doing. It might be your own frustrations that you are having. And you think that your frustrations are so removed that you can manage them in the way that but you're not realizing that when you express them to your children, you're expressing the same frustration. Your emotions speak and they are picking that up. But I'm dealing with a case like that, and I am having to tell the mother, yeah, but what you're doing is wrong. And sometimes, in my experience, when you tell parents or mothers that they're doing something, they get very upset. They say, who are you to tell me what to do? So you see, it is not as easy as it sounds, because sometimes we adopt an opinionated view of ourselves. And we think that because we are parents, we know it all, or we can talk to our kids as we like because we are the mother and they're the children. I'm feeding you and clothing you, I'll talk to you how you want to. See, so we might have that attitude. There's across the board, there's all kinds of issues. So it is, so it's no simple answer to say, why is she not responding? But if you don't ask her, stop and say, okay, why, when I ask you to do something, you don't want to do it, you push up your mouth, or why do you do that? And speak to her just like I'm talking. But he said, if you say, well, why are you moving? If you speak in that kind of tone, then you're not going to get the kind of answer response. So you need to calm yourself down, self-control, self-management. And then you ask the question. And I guarantee you 100% you get a different answer.
All right. So we have another question. What should men know about women's emotions during certain times of the month?
Okay. Well, of course, women at the younger age have what they call menses or periods. And for some women, this can be, excuse me, a very painful experience. It's called amenorrhea. They can be lots of tummy cramps and abdominal pains and stuff. And so they might be feeling irritable. They might not be feeling able to do the domestic chores at the same rate, at the same time, with the same intensity as they used to normally. So if you see your spouse is flagging a bit, struggling, then offer to help and say, are you okay? Are you now? I always find that word okay is a very bad word to ask anybody, are you okay? 90% of the time, if you ask someone if you're okay, they'll say, yeah, I'm fine. They might be walking to Mount Hope and going to get a surgery, and it's life determined. And you said, hi, sis, how are you? How are you going? She said, no, I'm fine. You don't know. People cover up a lot. So that word okay doesn't mean, ask people how you feel. How are you feeling? Now, how are you? I think you can, how are you? People always say, okay. If you say, how are you feeling? I want you to try this. If you ask people how they're feeling, they'll tell you how they feel. And you'll get a better insight into what's going on, what's really going on with them. So that's it. It's very important that you ask the right question, and so that you can get the answer that you want. But if you don't, then you're not going to really know what's happening to that person in any real way. You can cover up their emotions, and you wouldn't know.
All right, and the last question says, what happens when emotions are bottled up?
Okay, when emotions are bottled up, it's like a powder keg. It's like sitting in your car and putting your foot on the accelerator, and the car is revving nonstop. It's revving, and so you're getting all the hormonal secretions in your body, the cortisol, the noradrenaline, the adrenaline. Everything is wind up. And you're going nowhere. And it's going to come out someday over a minor issue. And it happens in relationships where a spouse will keep quiet because she doesn't want to, she says, for peace sake. And so she keeps quiet, and thing continues, and she's getting angry, and she sulks, she doesn't say anything, she keeps quiet. And then all of a sudden something happens and she snaps, and then you get the full force of the pent up emotions. So storing up emotions make the emotions stronger, greater intensity, and when it comes out, it might come out in a way that is destructive, that's negative, and that damages the relationship. It might come out with you saying something hurtful, mean, painful. Your emotions get twisted, and you then feel as though you want to hurt the person for all the pain and the hurt you have endured for all of those weeks or months or years. So it's always wise to bring things to the fore and try and deal with them as expeditiously as possible, and not let them sit with you and gain momentum and build intensity, and then manifest themselves in an explosive way. So it's really very important that you discuss, and that's one of the things that happy couples did when we talk. They have more positive interactions. They discuss issues in a courteous and respectful way. So we have an issue. All right, let's talk about it. Yes, there's sometimes when you would say, okay, let's not talk about this now. That's another important thing. You need to know when to talk about things. Some things you cannot bring up just before you go to bed, because they might disturb the rest of your sleep for the night, right? You shouldn't bring up issues that are very important for the family, depending on the age of the kids, in the earshot of some of the children. So it depends what the issues are. It depends on the importance of the issues. And you should find a time for you all to sit down, have some quality time where you and your partner can sit down and talk. You should have your lives so much running on parallel tracks that you're running on one track and she's running on another track, and you don't converge. You don't get time to sit down and mull over things and reflect and plan and all that. If you're not doing that in a relationship, then that's not a healthy thing. You need to be trying to have discussions so that you can keep abreast with what's happening with the children, what they're going through, share ideas, check in with each other. Hey, how was your day? Ask your children, hey, how was your day? How was class? How was that? So you need to be checking in with each other so that you are aware of what they're going through. They're aware of what issues mommy or daddy is having, and you can work it out. And sometimes we need to be very open, and we could tell the kids, look, I'm not feeling so well today, girls. It's my monthly cycle, or, I'm just coming home from work and I'm feeling so exhausted. Could you help me to do this? You need to talk to your children so that they know how you are feeling, so that they can relate to you in a way that can be beneficial for everyone in the family. And all of those things that I said are under the rubric of emotional intelligence. You need to be emotionally savvy. You need to understand that God gave us these emotions, and he gave us these emotions, but he has these emotions also because we were made in the likeness of him. And therefore, it is important that he gave us these emotions to express ourselves, to comment on his beauty, his marvelous creations, to praise him, to worship him, to show adoration, right? So we have these emotions. How we express these emotions to each other is very important. That is what determines the outcome. That is what determines the outcome. So the more emotionally self-aware, the more emotionally intelligent we are, the better we are able to express our emotions in a non-hurtful way, in a more edifying and holistic and developmental manner than if we are not emotionally intelligent, right? And so if we can't manage our emotions, then we get a surfeit of negativity, and in the way we think, the way we feel, and the way we act. And of course, some of these competencies, we might struggle with them, but we have to pray about it. And I am 100% sure that the Lord will provide it for you. I can tell you that I have benefited from becoming more emotionally intelligent in the way I relate to my spouse, the way I relate to my children and my grandchildren. I give you lots of testimonies about that, and even how I relate to my siblings. And I just want to close on this note of a story. There are 5 of us, all brothers, and I have this brother who, for some reason, I don't know, I have never ever even bothered to discuss it with him because he hasn't felt probably able to do it. But he remained in my country of origin. I traveled overseas. I stayed overseas in London, worked and educate myself in London, lived in London, and he remained in the home country. And he rose to a very high position in the government. But for some reason, this chap did not like me. I'm the eldest I never did anything to him. I never said anything to him wrong. Never, ever, ever. I would bring him stuff when I started travel. I would bring him all kinds of things, and only to discover that he would not use them, or he would throw them away, or he would give them away, or something. Whoa. And so I went through that with him. But I believe that sometimes you have to show good consistently to really spark a transformation in other people's mind. So I would be just me. I would just do what I am. I would, okay, so I just stopped bringing the things after a while. He didn't want them, but I would still call and say, hey, inquire. I would come to the country, but he would never invite me to his house. He would come and meet me at our parents' house, and that was fine, and so on and so forth and so forth. Cut a long story short, today, we are very close. How did that transformation came about? It's a long story, but the gist of it is I consistently maintain who I am. And after a while, he came to the realization, well, whatever I'm thinking about my eldest brother isn't right, it's wrong. He's not like that. So the transformation came from him. I don't know, but I kept praying. He would always be on our prayer list. I would pray and whatever. And I can testify. I have lots of examples I could give you where he went 360 degrees. And he would call me this morning. Hey, brother, how are you doing? He would call me in the morning. He would send me notes. He would do stuff for me if I asked him to do it. He would buy stuff for me if I asked him to do it. I mean, we are really good, loving brothers like we should have been. But we spent many, 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 many years him not speaking to me, and I never knew the reason why. And he never said why. He just, for those of you who believe in spirits might think he had an evil spirit or something, I don't know. But he was transformed. So we have, as children of God, we have a responsibility to live in accordance to the similitude of Christ. We also have a responsibility to value each other as partners in a relationship. We have a responsibility to the head of the home and to understand that even though we have authority as parents, we need to know how we wield that authority. Don't wield the authority in a hurtful, mean way, but do so in love and understanding. And you will get a richness, a beautiful satisfaction, and enjoy the pleasures of having a really, really good family. It's an experience that everyone, I think, should have, because there's nothing like it. And I'm sure that it's the kind of experience that the Lord would like us to have. So I hope and pray that our discourse this evening will fill you with hope and the knowledge to know that it can be done if you make a determination to manage the way that you first of all, you become aware of how you interact with your family members, and to realize that you have choice. You can decide to be a different person. You can decide to transform the way you relate to your spouse, your children, your sisters, your brothers. And you would see what a beautiful experience can come out of it. May the Lord bless you as you go forward in Jesus' name.